correct. I mean, although the global economy is emerging from the collapse triggered by the pandemic, the recovery that we're seeing now is uneven and a bit halting and subdued. So the global recovery, which was on the way, has been dampened by the recent resurgence of COVID-19 cases in a number of countries. So we are still waiting to see how that is going to work out. We do expect, however, that the economic recovery will strengthen over the medium term as confidence and consumption and trade improve. And this will be supported by ongoing vaccination. But it's important that in the meantime, limiting the spread of the virus is very important. And the vaccine is important, but it's not a silver bullet, a solution for all. It's still important to have personal hygiene and social distancing and wearing masks. Now, if you look at the global economy again, we expect global GDP to actually not be above its pre-pandemic trend. And the reason is simply that we have had, a full year of output losses. And it means that some of the countries in the world will actually have, very high levels of debt. And it makes the global economy vulnerable to, financial market stress. So this is something where also the World Bank IMF looked at and responded to, by proposing the debt suspension initiative for low-income countries. Now, it's also the expectation that this pandemic and the slower recovery will lead to a reduction in poverty reduction, in the speed of poverty reduction that's projected before COVID. And that means that it's important for economies to start doubling down on protecting the poor, but also to make sure that post-COVID, they're able to continue on this poverty reduction path.
Okay, Ralph, as for Indonesia, how do you see Indonesia's fundamentals in the hope of economic recovery, especially as we're going to do structural reforms with the omnibus law?
Yes, Indonesia was, of course, hit as any other country, and it's slowly recovering now. But it's important, indeed, to conduct structural reforms to make sure that Indonesia goes back to its pre-COVID growth path. Now, Indonesian fundamentals, have not necessarily changed. Indonesia is a young economy in a strategic location with a very large domestic market. Right, so that's important, and that remains. But we do expect that the COVID crisis is going to lead potentially to a drop in what we call potential output, in the ability of the economy to produce a certain level of output compared to the pre-COVID trend. And we've seen that from research that the World Bank has done in other countries after crisis. So we expect that Indonesia's potential output will be lower than pre-crisis, because of lower investment, productivity growth, potentially weaker business sentiment and uncertainty. There may have been, we expect to see, high firm exit and lower entry of new firms, and a weaker labor supply and human capital. Now, this weakening of the potential of Indonesia's economy can be mitigated. But to do that, it's important indeed to implement structural reforms, well-designed ones, that are aimed at boosting more investment, increasing the productivity of its labor force, and improving its human capital.
Okay, Ralph. And I'd like to know about the projection or the outlook for Indonesia's economic growth 2021 from World Bank and how it is compared to other peer countries.
Yeah, so if you look at the Southeast Asian region, any country has been affected, of course. But the way they've been affected depends, really on the openness to the global economy and the way they've handled the pandemic. And for example, if you look at Vietnam, it's a very open economy, but it has handled the pandemic quite well. And we see there that the downturn in Vietnam is actually it is still positive growth. 2020, we projected it to be about 2.83%, 2.8%. And it will rebound to around, close to 7% in 2021. Now, there are other countries like Philippines, which has been exposed in a quite different way and has been adversely impacted through a reduction in remittances coming out of the source countries where a lot of citizens are working, tourism, and they are expected to have a growth of almost minus 7% in 2020, but again with a sharp rebound. Now, if you look at a country like Thailand, we project that its growth will be close to minus 6% 2020, and again that rebounded in 2021. And again, it's these are open economies. That means that both the shock, a global shock, will have a larger impact, but also the rebound, if the global economy recovers, will also be faster. Now, Indonesia is a large but fairly closed economy, and it means that it has kind of its own dynamics, and the dynamics is very much driven by, in the past, very much on private consumption. So in 2020, we expect Indonesia's growth to be minus 2.2%. And then in 2021, we expect it to recover to about 4.4%, driven by public consumption and net exports.